Hello, and welcome to Birch Creek Farm. I know it's been a long time since we posted anything, but we've had a busy couple of months. We ordered all these roses over the winter time because we wanted to put in a rose labyrinth, as you may remember from the last episode. But in order to find where to place them, we had to take out all the soil and put in all the gravel for the walks and create the shapes. And then we planted the roses. And then by that time, it was time to go to England, which I don't regret, by the way. But when we came back from England, everything had turned into weeds, and we had to get everything dug out and planted. And we're beginning to see the tide turning, but we've been busy right up until now with all that. But speaking of England, I want to talk to you a little bit today about some of the things I learned when I was in England. We went specifically to learn about gardens, and we could entitle this episode Lessons from 5 Great Gardeners. The first of these gardeners is a man by the name of Capability Brown. Now, surprisingly, Capability isn't his real first name. His name was Lancelot, but he went by the nickname Capability because he would go to look at a new property that he was under contract for, and he'd say, "Yes, this looks like it has capability." And it just became his nickname. But he was part of the English landscape movement in the 18th century. And the landscape movement was tied to the idea of the picturesque. And it started with painting. Some of the great painters like Claude Lorraine would do landscapes, big giant landscapes. And they used specific places, but they also had the ability on the canvas to change them around to correspond to their idea of beauty. They would if a mountain was too close and they wanted it further away, they could just make it further away, paint it further away. If they wanted to part the trees and let the little church that was back there be part of the canvas, they just didn't paint the trees in front of the church. And if they wanted a happy little stream to run through, they could just paint it because they knew what a happy little stream looked like. They'd painted thousands of them, and they could put one here if it needed it. Now, that's easier to do on canvas than it is on real property. But that's exactly what Capability Brown did. He did it with real property. He would come in and he'd say, "These hills are kind of in the way. There's nicer mountains just beyond them." And so he'd get his people to move the mountains. He'd change rivers in their courses. One of the most famous things he did, we got to see the result of that at Blenheim Palace. He took a bridge that was built by another architect named Van Brugh, which was just a gorgeous bridge, but it just had this piddly little stream running through it. And Capability Brown came in and he dammed the river and he opened it up, and this enormous lake became the most important feature, probably, of all the parkland in Blenheim Palace. Now, the thing I've learned from Capability, and you know, there's a limit to what I can do. Capability used these vast open spaces. I have 2 acres. But I can still learn from him how to focus the view on an important point. He was very capable of opening up spaces and creating vistas. And whereas I don't do that with the big size, I can still draw attention to specific things and organize pictures around those specific things with my garden. Now, the second of my great British gardeners is a man by the name of Lawrence Johnston. And he was a wealthy man, Lawrence was. He was able to travel the world and collect plants, and he was able to dedicate his entire life to one practically perfect garden. It's just extraordinary, and I was very deeply moved by it. But one of the things you notice, of course, is the vastness of the plants, the large number of plants that are there. You see things there that you may not see anywhere else. But I think the thing that struck me the most was his use of garden rooms. He had about 4 acres, about twice as much as I have, so it's, by English landscape gardens or English gardens, it's not an enormous garden, but it was big enough that he felt the need to divide it into individual rooms. And that way, he could not only focus his attention on a smaller room, one room at a time, but he could also make them so that it's easier for the visitor to take them in, to comprehend them, and to see a single development. Now, that seems like the opposite of Capability Brown, but it's something that we can do here at Birch Creek Farm. The second of our great gardeners is Vita Sackville West. I always want to call her Lobelia Sackville Baggins. But she was a great gardener of the early part of the 20th century. She was a writer, she was a columnist, but she was also a gardener. She and her husband, Harold Nicholson, who was a British diplomat, bought a place called Sissinghurst Castle, which is interesting because there isn't a castle there. But it became a beautiful, beautiful garden. And Vita was famous for her beautiful color combinations. She was famous for her roses. And maybe most of all, at least most influential to me, was her idea, her dictum to cram, cram, cram when you're planting your plants. Plant them as close together, fill in every spot, don't leave any empty dirt. Not only will it keep the weeds out, but it'll give you a sense of abundance. And speaking of abundance, our fourth gardener is Christopher Lloyd. Now, Christopher Lloyd is not the Christopher Lloyd that was in Back to the Future. He was the great British gardener of the later 20th century and into the 21st century. He built a magnificent garden called Great Dixter. And Great Dixter is famous for a number of things. It may be certainly one of the greatest gardens in existence. It's famous for successional planting. Christopher Lloyd loved to make sure that there was always things blooming at all times. So he always had another plant coming up underneath the plant that was blooming so that there would be something to succeed it. He's famous for his plant combinations. He was wildly creative and put trees cheek by jowl with perennials and shrubberies and grasses and kind of opened up new vistas to modern gardeners. But maybe the thing that he was most influential for was the thing that Vita talked about, the cramming. He is so generous in his plantings. They're pouring over the walk, they're crowding together, they're very tall, they're in every nook and cranny. It's almost a wild garden in a sense, although it is very carefully planned as well. I love that sense of abundance about Christopher Lloyd's gardens. Well, it's going to take some time for us to have that kind of generosity planting here at Birch Creek. We can't afford to just go buy all those plants and stick them in 2 acres worth of ground. We're going to have to raise them from seed. We're going to have to divide them. We're going to have to buy them a little at a time. I doubt we'll travel around the world and bring back plants live like Lawrence Johnston did. That's illegal, so we're not going to do that. And so it's going to take some time. But right here in this first bed that we created at Birch Creek, and we call it romantically garden bed number 1, it is starting to give us an idea of what Birch Creek can look like. You'll see here we've got lots of different plants built together. They have beautiful sense of color. There's some height coming from the sunflowers. You've got this beautiful pink coming from the echinaceas here, the white in the center from the Shasta daisies. And there is a great sense of abundance here. These were plants that were with us at Rexburg before we moved out here. And we brought them out with us, almost all of them. The Nepeta here was one big plant, and we divided it into 4 and planted them 1, 2, 3, 4 across the front of that bed. and they are now big, and next year they'll be ready to divide into 4 again, each one of them. When these 4 become 16, we're going to start making some progress at filling the space in this garden. Same thing with the echinaceas. Now, echinaceas, we probably won't divide so much as we raise them from seed. We'll show you next week how we pot those echinaceas on. We raise them as seed, we put them in pots, we let them grow, we plant them out, and then the next year, a couple of years, they just get big and beautiful. We can do the same thing with Shasta daisy. Well, Shasta daisies divide very easily, but some of these we didn't even plan to have here. You'll see cosmos down here at the front. There's a big tall echinacea there, spotted throughout our sunflowers. Those are plants that came with us from Rexburg just in the dirt that we brought. And they've seeded themselves here, and they keep seeding. They'll spread all over the place. They're not really thugs because they don't take over, because it's pretty easy to edit them out if you want them. We had probably 60 or 70 sunflowers in this bed, and I went through and edited out all but 5 or 6 of them, and I'm still taking out 1 or 2 if they start to interfere with the rest of the garden. The cosmos just keep coming back, and they're spreading throughout the garden, and they're lovely additions. You start preparing your soil and watering it, and pretty soon it becomes capable of bearing, like Capability Brown, capable of bearing the seeds that come to it. Now, I said 5 gardeners, but I haven't talked about the 5th yet. The 5th is a woman by the name of Carol Klein, and she's a presenter on the BBC program Gardener's World, but she's also a great plantswoman and gardener, and has run a greenhouse, and just been a magnificent influence on the English garden during the course of her life. She's now 80 years old. But the thing I think has impressed me the most and has influenced me the most is just her enthusiasm. You can tell she just loves gardening, and she loves plants, and she finds them fascinating. And she's so happy to be out there gardening and happy to be there teaching you about it. And it thrills me. Well, the main reason we went to England, the thing that especially at this particular time, was we wanted to attend the Chelsea Flower Show. It's in London in late May, and it's one of the greatest flower shows in the world, and we wanted to go there. And we got there early in the morning, and we went into the great pavilion, this enormous tent that has so many beautiful flowers. All the great British gardeners and presenters are there, and went in, and guess who was there? Carol Klein. She was getting ready to do a presentation, and I couldn't help myself. I went up to her, told her what a heroine she was to me, how much we loved all that she does, all that we've read her books and done her presentations and have learned so much for her. And she seemed so happy. She says, "Oh, you made my day." And I was happy that I did it, because I know as a teacher that one of the best things that can happen to you is that a student can come up to you and tell you how you influenced them. So we hope you'll join us next week, I promise, on Birch Creek Farm. That's it for today. Bye-bye.